What is going on, everyone? Man, did we ever get a tidbit tonight in the Wyatt 6 story? It exceeded expectations once again. We did get to see Nikki out there at the end of the Money in the Bank qualifier match that Chad Gable did win. Lights go down, and then she appears in the ring in the mist. He runs off, scare him off, but that wasn't the point of this. She got out of the ring and she delivered a package to Michael Cole. Now, a lot of people thought it was based on Pat McAfee because he wasn't there tonight. I have no idea why he wasn't there tonight, but that was kind of what people were leaning towards. But if that's what they wanted, they swerved us big time because eventually Michael Cole would open this package and find a VHS tape inside. And the contents of the tape are just something else. They go ahead, he delivers the tape to the back, and then they play the tape. And what we see is what you're seeing on screen right now. Uncle Howdy having a sit down with himself, basically, Bo. And at first you don't know that that's what's going on. You see some of the glitches and flashes, and then all we see at first is Uncle Howdy asking questions and speaking to someone. We don't see who that person is right away, but then it's very quickly revealed to be Bo himself. And you're like, oh boy, all right. This is definitely going to be interesting. And it was. The reason that Bo is back, why Uncle Howdy's here, all of the things about feeling the loss of his brother, the critics out there saying, oh, he's just banking off his brother, this, that, and the third. Well, he answers those questions. And after you hear this, if you're still thinking like that, you're a fucking piece of trash. You know that? If you see this and you hear what he had to say and you still are going to sit there and say it's bullshit because, oh, they're just making money off of Bray Wyatt's name, yada, 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 and you still say that after what you heard Bo Taylor literally say in this segment, if you're still thinking like that, you're a fucking piece of trash. And that's just the way it is. And if you're like that, get the hell off my channel. Anyway, I don't think most people come in here are like that. I think we all are on board and see what's going on here. It's very emotional. He goes on to say all he ever wanted to be was like his brother, And they have like this little back and forth, him and Uncle Howdy. And honestly, when you see this, nobody, and I mean nobody, would have wanted this more for Bo than his brother. Okay? Nobody would have wanted this more for him than Bray. It's that simple. And it's a very, very, very compelling piece. And when it ends, when it's getting close to the end, it pans back, and that's when you see that shot where they're sitting in the same room across from each other. And then when you really look, they're actually sitting in the fun house. Yes, they are actually sitting in the fun house. Now, I want to go into some of my theories on this. My theories on this, I've actually touched on in the past. I've touched on some of these things in a recent video I did. Not the last one, I don't think. Maybe it was the previous one before that one. But I want to touch on these because I also brought it up back when Bray returned. When Bray originally returned, and we first started getting hints of this Uncle Howdy character, right? And we first saw that very first image of him with the hat and stuff, and he's all, howdy. When we first saw that, I thought at first maybe it would be another puppet, kind of an addition to the Funhouse. And it would make sense, right? An Uncle Howdy puppet added to the Funhouse, another friend, until we finally kind of start to realize, well, Uncle Howdy is all of them. Okay? So Uncle Howdy is all of them. That's what we start to realize. And what we also come to realize in that original incarnation of Uncle Howdy is that it's part of Bray's subconscious. The biggest overwhelming part of it is this Uncle Howdy inside his mind. And that is what he was battling to kind of ward off the feeling and the vibes and stuff that character was trying to, that being or that entity inside his brain, or that subconscious inside his brain, I should say, was trying to force on him. And when Bray would wear the Uncle Howdy mask, that kind of signified, he's wearing the Uncle Howdy mask. He is Uncle Howdy. In fact, Bray even said in one of the promos when he was in his rocking chair in the ring that he is Uncle Howdy. He literally admitted it, that he was Uncle Howdy. And so, like I said, the mask being on his face represented that he's, embracing Uncle Howdy, and he's just kind of let it all go and let it all fly, right? Now, you'll see that there was segments back then where he would be in the back, like with LA Knight, and they would have a moment, and he would feel that coming on, that sensation of, that whole thing's kind of wanting to take me over. And he would actually check his face to see if there was a mask. Even though there was none there, he would still check his face, almost as if to kind of put the mask on, because in that LA Knight promo, it seemed like he reached up, touched his face, almost as if to put a hypothetical mask on, and then he headbutts him, okay? Also, you see a promo with Bray where he gets very irritated with a worker backstage for interrupting him in the background, and he goes up to him, and he's raging at him, and he's just going off on him. And then, out of nowhere, he just kind of reaches up, and it looks like he's taking a mask off of his face, even though there's nothing there again. He looks like he's taking a mask off of his face, and then he calms down, and he lets the worker go, and everything else. So, in the segment with LA Knight, he puts it on, headbutts LA Knight. In that segment, he basically was going crazy on the backstage worker, and then seemingly took that mask off, and then calmed down and let him go. So now, with that in mind, I also want to point out that Uncle Howdy always would come on screen and call him a liar, right? He hates the liars, and he even said as much, and he put it in one of the QR codes where you had liar all over the screen against Bray's face. So with that and what we are seeing now, let's go to what we are seeing now, and we're going to kind of tie that all in with Bo being Uncle Howdy. How is Bo Uncle Howdy, and why? Well, Bray was lying to us. When Uncle Howdy said, "You're a liar," he was telling the truth that Bray was lying to us, because "Lie for Me, Brother" essentially is him getting his own brother to portray a physical version of Uncle Howdy to throw people off the scent that he was actually the one attacking LA Knight. Okay? So, of course, he had Bo playing Uncle Howdy. And, in fact, he had Jason Baker play Uncle Howdy the very first time we saw Uncle Howdy out in the arena. That was Jason Baker playing him that night. But, so he kind of used his friends to portray him, and then he used his brother to portray him, Uncle Howdy, that is. And like I said, the lie for me brother thing, right? So that was to throw everybody off, thinking, oh, okay, Uncle Howdy is a legitimately physical being here, obviously, a physical person, when in reality, the one doing the attacking backstage was Bray. And he would have the Uncle Howdy mask on. Anytime you would see an attack happen back there, there was a person with Uncle Howdy mask on, or floating around in the background, right, with an Uncle Howdy mask on. And the whole premise of that was we were going to lead up to building a new family. And of course, that didn't get to happen because of his untimely death. But now here we are. And Bo has returned as Uncle Howdy. But not like you think, especially after what we saw tonight. After what we saw tonight, in my mind, and my theory, is Bo was just simply portraying Uncle Howdy for his brother, lie for me brother. And now that Bray has gone, the entity or the conscious, the subconscious of Uncle Howdy has now entered into Bo and has now inhabited him. So, where once he was simply playing Uncle Howdy for his brother, he has now become and inhabited Uncle Howdy altogether. So now he has harbored it. He is harboring that now. And now he has to battle with it. And he has gathered up those that are battling with similar things. And thus, we have the Wyatt Six. And this whole thing with them sitting in the funhouse, this is all in his subconscious, basically. He's now in the funhouse in his mind, a dark funhouse. I don't think it's a fun funhouse anymore, personally. I think it's quite the dark funhouse, if you ask me. And that's really intriguing because now the vision that Bray set forth to put out there, that story will now continue and the vision will be realized. And so I'm very, very excited, very, very excited to see where it goes, to say the least. Now, in this video, we also seen some flashes of imagery. We've seen an image of the group themselves, which is kind of cool shot. We've seen one of the Nightbird logos, Wyatt 6 logo on the Pluto symbol. And a couple other things. One I couldn't quite make out. It almost looked like someone kneeling over or bending over or leaning over. I don't know what was that all was about, but I couldn't freeze frame it good enough. But then we seen a number. Almost looks like the numbers on the alarm clock that Bray used to have in the funhouse. One was a 25, and I forget what the other one was. I couldn't freeze frame it on that one either. I kept trying. Thing wasn't agreeing with me, so whatever. But other people have it out there. I'm sure you'll find it. I think it was a 26 or a 28 or a 29 or something like that. It's one of them. But we definitely got some interesting things flashing there if you can capture it. I wasn't fast enough. I got some of them. But anyway, that's where we're at right now. And it is just very compelling. Like, there's no way you want to miss next week, you know? You see something like that, and it just captivates you, and it is just easily the best thing I'm seeing on TV right now. And that goes for whatever. I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch wrestling, and then I watch my Major League Baseball. Basically all I watch. Or horror movies, of course. I watch all kinds of horror movies. Horror movies all day, every day, if I can. I've gotten my son into horror movies at a way too young age, but hey, oh well, so was I when I was young. Oh, my goodness. Now, what I thought would be fun is just take a look here at a couple responses I had on because I did talk about this I threw this theory out there on X/Twitter earlier, my theory about it and everything. And like I said, I have touched on this in the past. Previous videos and older videos that were around that I did back when Bray originally returned. So this whole theory that I have is, I think clearly we're seeing two different versions of Bo here. We've got the Uncle Howdy, and then we got Bo himself, or Taylor, however he's going to go, whatever he's going to call himself. I would assume he's just going to call himself Bo Dallas, because honestly, guys, that's what people are going to call him when he's just regular himself. Just like Bray, people called Bray when he's just regular himself. They didn't call him Wyndham. They didn't call, you know what I mean? So I feel like they're just going to call him Bo. Maybe they'll just call him Bo and leave the Dallas out of it. I don't know. Either way, we're seeing two different versions here of him. And I do believe we're going to see the real Bo, the real Taylor out in the ring, cutting promos and doing stuff out there. I really believe we're going to see him out there as himself, much like we saw Bray kind of as himself, quote unquote, when he came back that last time. And I also believe that everybody else in the group will kind of have that same thing going on. They're going to have their same kind of two different personalities, right? Dexter, Nikki, Joe, Eric, they're all going to have those two different sides to them, where they're more of the everyday human, and then their freak show side, like Uncle Howdy, Mercy the Buzzard, so forth and so on. All right. It's almost like all of them, it's like their own fiends in a way, right? Uncle Howdy is Bo's fiend, and so forth and so on. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, could we see the fiend return as, like, Bo return as the fiend? Hey, anything's possible. I don't know if I would personally do that. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know that I would personally do that. I think I would just keep Uncle Howdy as his fiend, basically. But I do think we're going to see these two sides to all the characters in this group. I do think we're going to go down that road. And I actually said this in a previous video where I do believe this could be the direction they go, where we see the normal kind of versions of them and then the, spooky side of them. All right. Even back when I talked about this stuff even back in the older videos about when Bray came back. I kind of had that same feeling that that's where we were going to go with things with, the Uncle Howdy. We were going to find out eventually that it was Bo back then, and then things like that. Okay. But that's where I think it's going, and I have no problem with it. It's gonna be absolutely compelling, must see TV every week to see what's going to happen next. Clearly, when they said they were filming vignettes, this was one of them, and it was absolutely epic. Absolutely epic, super emotional, and then some. And I have some responses here to my Twitter post about the theory. Crimson says, "Awesome work, brother." I said, "Thanks, brother." Kelly said, "I agree 100%. This piece, even though I bawled like a baby once again, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone there. Not alone at all. Super emotional stuff. Was a masterpiece. I do not doubt that we will not be let down with this story. Oh, no, we're not going to be let down with this. The way this went tonight, I have all the confidence in the world now because this is something. This is definitely something. They went places I wasn't really thinking they were going to, like, not this deep. I didn't think they were going to go this deep, but man, they're going there, and it's going to be great. We're about to embark on the amazing end of the journey of Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt's legacy, and the beginning of Taylor's. Ain't that the truth? And it's a wonderful thing. It's an absolutely wonderful thing. Bruno says, "Well done, brother. Taylor wants to honor his brother, and Howdy wants to continue the massacres and the horrible things. And now Taylor and Howdy have become one, and they share the same objectives." Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better myself. That is exactly what we're doing here. And man, wow. I'm just blown away by what we got tonight. Just when you think they couldn't do any better than that debut or return for Uncle Howdy and debut that they did last week, you still were left with questions. How is this going to work and how are they going to do this and yada, yada, yada. And man, after tonight, in Triple H, I trust, to say the least. And we can trust in him because he has shown a dedication to make these stories work in his WWE. The long-term storytelling, everything he's done, he has seen it through and he has made it work. And when the time comes where the fans say, hey, we need to maybe go this direction, he goes that direction if it makes sense. And he has delivered on everything. Some things aren't top tier. Some things aren't the greatest thing in the world, but you got to admit, he has delivered on the long-term story and the long-term booking. And it really it makes you want to watch every week. This is why WWE is on fire right now. This is absolutely why they're on fire. They're captivating the audiences with these stories, and they just leave you with enough to say, damn, man, I got to go watch next. I got to make sure I watch next week. I haven't had this feeling in a long time, since at least Bray Wyatt, Originally, growing up, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here, so sorry. When I was growing up, of course, I had my favorites back in the day, like Macho Man and all that. I loved Macho Man. Hulk was cool. I was more of a Macho Man kid. And a Junkyard Dog kid. Loved Junkyard Dog. Rowdy Piper. Rowdy Piper, definitely my guy back then. And then as we move up the line, Bret Hart was always my guy in the 90s, the early 90s. Loved Bret Hart. And I was pretty much still glued to wrestling at that time. Until around, I don't know, I think it's when Razor and Diesel, a.k.a. Scott and Kevin, left and went to WCW. Because I loved Razor Ramon. Dude, I absolutely loved Razor Ramon. He was my guy. Him and Bret all day, man. Razor Ramon. Shawn Michaels, I love Shawn Michaels, but Razor Ramon was my guy. I was pulling for him in the ladder matches and all that stuff. But when they left, I was like, damn, they left. That's a bummer. But then they showed up in WCW, and of course they couldn't be Razor Ramon there or Diesel, but they were their own thing. And it was cool for a while, and then I watched, the birth of the NWO. But it wasn't too long after that I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. WWF at the time was just absolutely insufferable and got way too corny. And at that time, I was like in high school, and I'm like, I'm done with this. And WCW was just kind of spinning their wheels, and there was like 50,000 NWO members and 5 different NWO factions and everything. Although I love the Wolfpack theme. The Wolfpack theme was great. But there were so many and so much going on. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. And then it was like a year or two later. I hadn't watched wrestling for a while after that. And then it was like a year or two later. I get a phone call, and my friend's like, dude, do you see what's going on Raw? Like, they're smashing each other with glass vases and everything else, and everybody's bleeding everywhere, and they're like having these hardcore matches, just absolutely annihilating each other. And then Stone Cold's gone crazy, and he's like drinking all the time. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And then I turn it on, and that was like late 98. So I missed all that, like, whole 98 year, which was a good year when you go back and watch. But I missed most of it and caught up at the end of 98, going into WrestleMania 15, I believe it was. So I did catch all the, the beer bath and all that stuff with Austin. And the whole, rocking Mankind, just annihilating Mankind with the chair and all that stuff. I remember all that. And I'm just like, wow, this is so not what I left. Like, when I said I'm done watching this, and then I come back and I see this on there, I'm like, wow, this is like not what I left. I don't know what the hell happened here. So then, of course, from that point forward, I watched it pretty much all the time. And then when I'd say, mid 2000s or whatever, when Edge and Matt Hardy had their fallout because obviously Lita cheated on him with Edge in real life and got Matt Hardy fired, I was just absolutely pissed off about that. I'm like, for real? Really? You're going to fire Matt Hardy after this shit and totally fuck him over and then go ahead and have live sex celebrations and shit on TV? God. I was fucking pissed, dude. Seriously, I was not happy. So I quit watching, But then a little up-and-coming wrestler known as CM Punk got my attention, and then I started watching again. Straight Edge Society got me watching again. Now, I knew of CM Punk before from Ring of Honor and stuff, but I never really paid that much attention. But I knew of him because of watching random Ring of Honor shows. But yeah, the Straight Edge Society, I'm like, all right, man, they're really doing something with Punk here, and then so forth and so on, and then everything else from that forward. Summer of Punk, yada, yada, yada. Huge CM Punk fan. Once CM Punk really took off, he became my number one guy, no matter what. Became my number one guy. He was still my number one guy even when Bray Wyatt came in as Bray Wyatt. Like, I saw all the Husky Harris stuff and stuff like that, but when Bray Wyatt became Bray Wyatt in NXT, and I remember you could watch those on Hulu, I think it was, those old NXT shows. I was intrigued. I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. It's almost like a horror movie cult. It's almost like a cult in a horror movie where they're in the woods and this and that because of the vignettes in NXT. But it was very intriguing. And then, of course, CM Punk decides, and Bray and the Wyatt family were called up at this point, and I was very into them. But Punk was still my number one guy, but then he was being done dirty and everything else. And then he walked out on the company, and I'm like, really, dude? Damn, man, how you going to walk out? But then I didn't leave like I normally did when shit got stupid. I stuck around because Bray Wyatt kept me around. And he kept me around all the way up until he was released after the pandemic. And man, after he was released, I was so angry and infuriated and super infuriated that they continued to use his world, so to speak, with Alexa Bliss. I don't hold that grudge against Alexa Bliss. She's not in charge of the show. But the fact they did that probably is why I have like this hesitance to have her involved in this. Even though I know she's going to be. We saw the production truck tonight when Chad Gable arrived. There she was on there, and that was not a mistake. Her picture on the production truck. But yeah, this is, I know she's going to be involved in some way. And I want her to be involved in the story, but I don't want her to be too close, I guess, because I just think about that, and it just still irritates me to this day that they fired him and then they continue to use her in his world, and just like, it rubbed me the wrong way, man. Rubbed me the wrong way. Again, I know it's not her fault. I don't blame her one solitary second for it at all. I like Alexa Bliss, don't get me wrong, but that whole thing just rubbed me the wrong way, and I just kind of want to separate that from that world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's why I feel the way I do. Absolutely nothing against her. It's just kind of like in my mind, I just want to keep them separate. You know, especially how she did him dirty at WrestleMania, then he gets fired and everything else. Just, whatever. And I kind of like just gave up on really watching wrestling at all after that. It just really was like, man, this is just, forget this. I mean, seriously, everything that I loved about it is just going downhill. Then AEW started up, and I kind of watched that for a while, and I'm like, all right, this is cool and all, but it's almost like a young version of WCW, and I really don't want to go down that road again, where we're just, it's matches after matches. I'm here for story more so than just matches and matches. Great matches. I'm glad everybody has a place to work, but it's just not my cup of tea. And I think it's fine. And I will watch it from time to time, but it's just not my everyday, every week cup of tea. And there's people in there that I love. I do love Kenny Omega and other people there. Of course, John Moxley, guys like that. Alistair Malachi Black. Love guys like that. So I'm glad they have a place to work, and that's great. But it's just not my cup of tea. So I didn't follow it every week. Okay. But when the rumblings started about Bray maybe coming back, and then we started getting the White Rabbit QR codes. Well, we started getting the song "Feed Your Head" playing in the arenas. You knew it had to be him. Then the QR codes and the White Rabbit and everything, man, it was just excellent. And then when he finally arrived at Extreme Rules, it was almost surreal. Like you couldn't even believe it was happening. Like this is actually happening, and it's so surreal. And it was the greatest thing ever. And I watched every week. I started this channel here. I tried to keep up with the news. It was tough because I have all this other shit going on that I do. But it was great. And then it started disappearing. He was disappearing, and he just got sick, and nobody knew exactly what was going on. Nobody knew that he had gotten sick, and that's why he disappeared. At first you're thinking, man, they really just put him on a shelf again like this? Why? But you didn't know the details until later. And then, then he passes away, and then I'm like, all right, forget this. Just forget it. I'm done with wrestling. CM Punk came back to AEW, and that intrigued me. I watched it for a little bit, and I'm like, man, it just ain't the same. He doesn't even look happy there. Lo and behold, he wasn't. Maybe at first he was, but man, the ones I saw, it just looked like he was miserable as hell being there. And then clearly we found out that he pretty much was. And so I'm like, man, I'm just done with this shit altogether. And then CM Punk comes back to WWE, something I never in a million years thought would happen. And I'm like, really? Really? Just when it's like Shawn Michaels said one time, he said, just when you think you got away, they somehow reel you back in. And they found a way to do it. They brought Punk back, and I'm like, damn, I brought Punk back. Okay, all right. And then he goes and gets injured, and I'm like, of course you did. Of course you did. Damn it. But luckily, he stuck around. He still did promos and stuff, and he didn't really go away, so that kind of helped. But then we got the Bray documentary. And my God, what a heartbreaking thing. But a special thing. Also, not realizing that the video we were seeing of Bo meeting up with Jason Baker here in Pittsburgh, you just thought, okay, well, he's there to do this documentary and this and that. But the rumblings I heard around town here, because I'm in Pittsburgh and I'm not far away from the studio there, I was under the impression and heard rumblings that they were working on something special. And I just assumed, okay, well, that must have been the documentary and this and that. But no, he met with Jason Baker because they were working on the Wyatt 6. That's what they were working on. And now we know what they were working on. Because we got the Uncle Howdy tease at the end of the documentary. We had one at the WWE World around WrestleMania time. And then the QR codes start. And now here we are. And so freaking happy, man. I am just so happy, over the moon. I am here for it. And I'm here for you guys. Like I said, I'm going to try to get stuff out at least once a week about this stuff. We're going to have another video probably later in the week on this as more details come out. But I just want everybody to know. This is the RCW Wrestling Podcast, but it's mainly and always was a Bray Wyatt channel. Okay? And it's going to continue to be that. It's going to continue to be that. It's going to continue to be a Bray Wyatt channel. With a little CM Punk thrown in here and there. CM Punk got his, his comeuppance there at SmackDown after he screwed Drew McIntyre yet a second time at Clash of the Castle. And so he got annihilated on SmackDown, obviously, to keep him off TV until he's officially cleared, which they're saying will be by SummerSlam. So that will definitely be the SummerSlam match. And with the build they've had, it has to be the main event, right? McIntyre versus Punk has to be the main event. It has to, right? Unless they're going to bring Roman Reigns back at the end of that Cody Rhodes Solo Sikoa match, then, hey. But for anybody watching, first time, anything like that, this is a Bray Wyatt-focused channel, CM Punk-focused channel, mainly Bray Wyatt stuff, unless CM Punk, once CM Punk's back, really fully back, and we're in the trenches with him again, he'll be featured on here much like the Bray Wyatt stuff. Now the Wyatt 6 stuff with Bo and everybody else involved. Okay? I'm not really a recap guy. I don't recap the shows. I don't really do that. I just kind of take bits and pieces that I enjoyed and then I talk about them. Right? So that's what this is. It's just a discussion channel. It's not a recap show or anything like that. We're just talking wrestling. We're talking what goes on in wrestling, about the things I'm interested in most in wrestling. And right now, that's the Wyatt 6 and CM Punk stuff. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned for more. If you enjoyed listening to this or watching this, however you're doing it, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified when something else goes up, because it's not going to be like every day. So you want that notification bell on so that you know. And if you don't mind, hit the like button. If not, hit the dislike. It's all good. So with that said, I will catch you all down the road.